Victoria Kingston yanked the fire extinguisher off the wall and sprayed it directly at Marcus Webb's truck. "Get this trash out of my lot!" she screamed, white foam coating the rusted hood, while 300 employees watched in shock. Marcus Webb, 58 years old, stood frozen with his lunch bag in hand. Foam dripped down the windshield of his 1972 Ford F-100, the truck his dying wife had helped him build. He didn't yell, didn't run. He walked straight to the driver's door, turned the key, and the engine exploded to life with a sound that made Victoria's smile disappear. That sound was worth $50 million, and it was about to destroy everything she had. Drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story goes. The foam was still dripping when Marcus turned that key. 300 people held their breath. Victoria Kingston stood 10 feet away, fire extinguisher hanging limp in her manicured hands, white residue speckling her designer suit. She had expected the truck to choke, to sputter, to die right there in front of everyone, proving her point about the maintenance man who dared park his junk in her executive lot. Instead, the engine sang, not rumbled, not coughed. Sang. A deep, smooth harmonic that vibrated in their chests like a heartbeat. The kind of sound that belonged in a NASA facility, not under the hood of a vehicle older than half the employees watching. Victoria's fire extinguisher clattered to the asphalt. "What the hell?" she whispered. Marcus let it run for 10 seconds. 15. 20. The sound filled the parking lot, drowning out the silence, drowning out the shock, drowning out 3 years of humiliation he had swallowed at this company. Then he killed the engine, climbed out, and picked up his lunch bag. "It runs fine, ma'am." He walked past her without another word. Past the executives with their jaws hanging open. Past the junior employees who had laughed at her jokes. Past Raymond Chen, the young engineer who was staring at the truck like he'd just seen a ghost. Victoria didn't move. Couldn't move. She had heard that sound before. In her dreams. In the failing prototypes her engineering team had burned through for 2 years and $47 million. And it had just come from a janitor's truck. "Jaw, who the hell is he?" Victoria slammed her office door so hard, the glass rattled. Her assistant James jumped back, nearly spilling coffee on his tablet. "Marcus Webb, maintenance staff. Been here 5 years. I know his name. I want to know who he really is. That engine isn't normal. That sound isn't possible." "Victoria, he's 58 years old. He mops floors. He empties trash. His background check came back clean when we hired." "Then check again." Victoria grabbed James by the tie and pulled him close. "I want everything. Every job he's ever had. Every school. Every parking ticket. I want to know what he eats for breakfast and what he dreams about at night. You understand me?" James nodded rapidly. "Yes, ma'am." "And James..." Victoria released him. "Get me the security footage from today. Every angle. I want to see that engine up close." She turned to the window, looking down at the parking lot where her employees were still clustered around Marcus's truck, taking pictures with their phones, whispering to each other. Her phone buzzed. Text from the board chairman. "Heard there was an incident. Everything okay?" Victoria's jaw tightened. No. Everything was not okay. Everything was very far from okay. Marcus ate his lunch in the maintenance closet. Same as always. The room smelled like pine sol and rust. A single bulb flickered overhead. He sat on an overturned bucket, unwrapping the ham sandwich he'd made at 5 a.m. and tried to stop his hands from shaking. Stupid. That was stupid. Should have kept his head down. Should have taken the humiliation like he'd taken it 100 times before. But when that foam hit the windshield, Denise's windshield, the truck they'd built together in their garage, something in him snapped. He pulled out her photograph, worn soft at the edges from years in his wallet. Denise in her lab coat, grease on her cheek, grinning like she'd just solved the universe. "I'm sorry, baby," he whispered. "I should have walked away. Now she's going to start asking questions." The photograph didn't answer. It never did. But he could hear Denise's voice anyway, clear as the day she died. "You can't hide forever, Marcus. Sooner or later, the truth comes out. I'm not ready. You're 58 years old. How much longer you gonna wait? A knock on the door made him shove the photo back in his pocket. Marcus, you in there? Raymond Chen, the young engineer. One of the few people at Kingston who looked Marcus in the eye when they talked. Yeah, come in. Raymond squeezed into the closet, closing the door behind him. His face was pale, excited, scared. That engine? Raymond said. I need to know what that was. Just an old truck? Don't give me that. I've got 2 degrees in mechanical engineering. I've worked on prototype propulsion systems for 3 years. What I heard out there today doesn't exist. The resonance profile, the thermal signature, the power output, that's not combustion. That's not hybrid. That's something else entirely. Marcus kept eating his sandwich. You're imagining things. I pulled up the audio on my phone, ran it through spectral analysis on my lunch break. Raymond held up his screen. Look at this waveform. Look at the frequency distribution. This is regenerative energy cycling, self-sustaining power loops. We've been trying to build this for 2 years and burning through millions. Sounds like you should work harder. Marcus. Raymond stepped closer. I did some digging. There was a propulsion engineer at NASA back in the 2000s, filed patents for something called the Phoenix Core, a self-regenerating thermodynamic system. The researcher's name was Marcus Webb. Silence. His wife was a materials scientist, Denise Webb. They were going to change the world. Then she got cancer. The patents got tangled up in some corporate acquisition, and Marcus Webb just disappeared. Marcus set down his sandwich. That was a long time ago. 15 years. But it's you, isn't it? You're that Marcus Webb. I'm a janitor. I mop floors. And I'm a struggling engineer with a 6-year-old daughter who's gonna lose her daddy's health insurance if this company tanks. Raymond's voice cracked. We're 3 weeks from the government deadline. 47 million spent. And our prototype is dead. It won't work. Nothing works. Marcus looked at the young man, saw the fear in his eyes, the desperation. What do you want from me, Ray? Help us. Please. I know you can. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up, brushed crumbs off his coveralls, and opened the closet door. I have floors to mop. Marcus. Your daughter. What's her name? Raymond blinked. Lily. Her name's Lily. Marcus nodded slowly. Something flickered across his face. Pain memory loss. That's a beautiful name. Then he was gone, pushing his maintenance cart down the hallway, leaving Raymond standing alone in the closet. Victoria found the files at 2 a.m. She'd torn through her father's old office, the one she'd sealed after his death, the one she'd never had the courage to clean out. Boxes of papers, folders thick with dust, the smell of cigars still clinging to the curtains after 3 years. Charles Kingston had been a bastard. Victoria knew that. Everyone knew that. He'd built Kingston Industries through intimidation, manipulation, and deals that skirted the edge of legal. But he was her father, and she'd inherited everything he built. Now, sitting on the floor, surrounded by his papers, she wished she hadn't. The folder was marked Webb Acquisition 2011. Inside, patent transfer documents, legal correspondence, a settlement agreement for $85,000 pennies for technology worth billions, and a handwritten note in her father's scratchy script. Webb desperate, wife dying, settled for nothing, Phoenix Core, now ours, bury it until market ready. Victoria's hands trembled. There were more papers. Hospital bills forwarded to the Webb residence. Legal threats sent during Denise Webb's chemotherapy. A memo from Kingston's lawyers celebrating the successful acquisition of distressed intellectual property. Her father hadn't just bought the patents. He'd waited until Marcus Webb was at his most vulnerable, holding his dying wife's hand, and stolen everything. Oh God, Victoria whispered. Oh my God. She thought about the parking lot, the fire extinguisher, the foam dripping down the truck Marcus Webb had built with his wife. She thought about the sound of that engine, and she understood finally what she was dealing with. The next morning, Victoria called an emergency meeting of the engineering team. 12 people crammed into the conference room. Dr. Chen at the head of the table looking like he hadn't slept in days. Raymond in the corner, avoiding Victoria's eyes. And a dozen other engineers who had failed over and over to build what Marcus Webb carried in his truck. "The Omega project is dead," Victoria announced. Gasps, murmurs. Dr. Chen's face went gray. "Victoria, if you'll just give us more time." "Time isn't the problem." Victoria pulled up a photo on the main screen, a grainy still from the parking lot security footage showing the engine bay of Marcus's truck. "Technology is the problem. We've been trying to build something that already exists." She told them everything: the Phoenix core, the stolen patents, Marcus Webb's identity, his wife, his tragedy, his 15 years of hiding in plain sight. By the time she finished, the room was silent. "So what do we do?" Raymond asked quietly. Victoria turned to him. "We get him to help us." "After what you did yesterday, the fire extinguisher." "I'll apologize." "You think that's going to be enough? You sprayed his truck, his wife's truck, with foam in front of the whole company." "Then I'll do more than apologize. I'll make him an offer he can't refuse." Dr. Chen shook his head. "Victoria, the man's been hiding this technology for 15 years. He could have sold it anywhere. He could have made millions. Instead, he's mopping our floors. Whatever he wants, it isn't money." "Everyone wants money." "Not everyone." Raymond stood up. "Some people want justice. Some people want respect. And some people—" he looked Victoria in the eye— "just want to be left alone with what they have left." Victoria's jaw tightened. "Then I'll find another way." She found Marcus in the parking garage at 6 p.m., loading cleaning supplies into his truck. "We need to talk." Marcus didn't turn around. "I'm off the clock. I know who you are. What you built. What my father did to you." That made him pause. His shoulders tensed. But he still didn't face her. "Found the files, did you?" "Yes." "And now you want the engine, just like him." "I want to make this right." Marcus laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Right. You want to make it right." He finally turned around. "Your father came to my house while my wife was dying. Did you know that? Came right to the door. Said he was sorry about Denise. Said he wanted to help with the medical bills. All I had to do was sign over the patents." Victoria said nothing. "I told him no. Said the Phoenix core was Denise's legacy. Said I'd rather go bankrupt than let him have it." Marcus's voice hardened. "So he waited. 3 months. Until she was in hospice, until I was sleeping on a cot next to her bed, until I hadn't eaten in 2 days. Then his lawyer showed up with papers. Said there was a filing error in our original patents. Said they could tie us up in court for years unless we settled. Marcus, $85,000. That's what your father paid for technology worth billions, and I took it because my wife needed medication that cost $12,000 a month, and I couldn't fight him and watch her die at the same time." Silence. "She died 3 weeks later. Never knew I'd signed it away. Never knew her dream got sold for nothing." Victoria's voice was small. "I didn't know." "Would it have mattered?" "Yes, it would have mattered to me." Marcus studied her face, looking for the lie, looking for the angle. "I'm not my father," Victoria said. "I know that's hard to believe. I know what I did yesterday was unforgivable, but I'm asking you, begging you to give me a chance to prove I'm different." "How?" "Work with us. Help us build the Phoenix core properly. Full credit. Full royalties. Everything my father stole returned to you legally." "And what do you get?" "The government contract. My company survives. Everybody wins." Marcus was quiet for a long time. Behind him, the parking garage lights buzzed and flickered. "You know what the difference is between you and your father, Victoria? Tell me." He never pretended to be sorry, never tried to make nice, He just took what he wanted and left. Marcus opened his truck door. You're doing the same thing, but you want me to feel good about it while it happens. That's not. Good night, Ms. Kingston. He climbed into the truck. The engine roared to life, that impossible, beautiful sound, and he pulled away, leaving Victoria standing alone under the fluorescent lights. She watched until his taillights disappeared. Then she pulled out her phone and called her lawyer. Michael, I need everything we have on the Phoenix Core patent. Every legal angle, every loophole, every claim we can make. She paused. If he won't help us willingly, we'll find another way. The war started the next morning. Marcus arrived at work to find 2 security guards waiting by the time clock. Mr. Webb, you need to come with us. What's this about? Ms. Kingston wants to see you. Now. They escorted him to the executive floor, past the cubicles where people stared, past the conference rooms where engineers whispered, into Victoria's corner office where she sat behind her desk like a queen on a throne. The guards closed the door and stood in front of it. Sit down, Marcus. I'll stand. Victoria smiled. Cold. Professional. I spoke with our legal team last night. Interesting conversation. I'll bet. Patent US 7892441. The Phoenix Core. Legally acquired by Kingston Industries in 2011. She slid a document across the desk. According to our attorneys, any derivative technology, anything built using the principles outlined in that patent, belongs to us. Marcus didn't look at the paper. That patent was stolen. That patent was purchased, legally, from you. Under duress, while my wife was dying. Prove it. Victoria leaned forward. You have no evidence, no witnesses, no documentation of coercion, just your word against a dead man's reputation. Marcus felt his chest tighten. The same words. The same impossible demand. 15 years and nothing had changed. What do you want? Simple. You work for us. You help our engineers complete the Omega project using your expertise. In exchange, you keep your job, you receive a significant raise, and we don't pursue legal action against you for IP theft. IP theft. That's my technology. That's Kingston's technology. Has been for 15 years. Victoria's smile didn't waver. I'm being generous here, Marcus. I could have you arrested. Instead, I'm offering you a partnership. A partnership where you own everything and I get nothing. A partnership where you get to keep working, keep driving your wife's truck, keep pretending you're just a janitor. She paused. Or you can fight me, and I will bury you so deep no one will remember Marcus Webb ever existed. The room was silent. Marcus looked at Victoria. Really looked. Behind the power suit and the cold smile he saw something he recognized. Fear, desperation. The terror of a woman whose empire was crumbling, who had bet everything on a contract she couldn't win. She wasn't evil, she was cornered. That didn't make her less dangerous. It made her more. You know what, Victoria? Your father said almost the exact same thing to me, 15 years ago. Same office, different furniture. Victoria's smile flickered. He said he'd bury me too. Said no one would believe a broke engineer over a captain of industry. Marcus picked up the legal document and looked at it for the first time. He was right. No one did believe me, and he got everything he wanted. Then you understand your position. I understand something else. Marcus tore the document in half, then quarters, then eighths. I was 38 years old when your father destroyed my life. Young enough to still believe I could start over, scared enough to think I had something to lose. He let the pieces flutter to Victoria's desk. I'm 58 now. My wife is gone. My career is gone. I've spent 15 years mopping floors and keeping my head down. He met her eyes. You can't threaten a man who's already lost everything. Victoria's face hardened. You're making a mistake. No, I'm making a choice. Marcus turned toward the door. The security guards shifted uncertainly, looking to Victoria for instruction. You can fire me. You can sue me. You can try to take my truck, but you will never get what's inside my head. And that's where the Phoenix core really lives. He pushed past the guards. Marcus. Victoria's voice stopped him at the door. This isn't over. He looked back one last time. You're right. It's just beginning. They fired him by email. Marcus was already home when the message arrived. 2 sentences. Termination effective immediately. Final paycheck mailed. He sat in his small apartment reading the words over and over on his cracked phone screen and felt nothing. No anger, no fear, no satisfaction, just exhaustion, bone deep and endless. His phone buzzed. Text from Raymond. I'm so sorry. I heard what happened. Can I do anything? Marcus typed back. Take care of your daughter. The rest doesn't matter. He set the phone aside and looked around his apartment. 20 years of memories compressed into 400 square feet. Denise's photograph on every wall. Her books still on the shelf. Her coffee mug still in the cabinet never used since the day she died. What now, Dee? He asked the empty room. I'm out of moves. Out of time. Out of everything. The silence answered him. Outside his window, the sun was setting over Detroit. Orange light bleeding across abandoned factories and empty lots. A city that had known greatness once before, the world moved on and left it behind. Marcus understood that feeling. More than anyone. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Hello. Mr. Webb, my name is Angela Torres. I'm an investigative journalist with the Detroit Free Press. Marcus frowned. How did you get this number? A source at Kingston Automotive. They told me about what happened today, and about what happened 15 years ago. Silence. Mr. Webb, I've been investigating Charles Kingston for years. The deals he made, the people he destroyed. I never had enough to publish, but now... Angela paused. I think you have a story that needs to be told. Marcus looked at Denise's photograph, at her smile, at the dreams they'd shared. Mr. Webb, are you still there? He took a breath. Yeah, I'm here. He stood up and walked to the window, watching the last light fade from the sky. You want a story? Come to my apartment tomorrow morning. Bring a recorder. You'll talk to me. I'll do more than talk. Marcus felt something shift inside him, something that had been dormant for 15 years. I'll show you everything. That night, Marcus went to the garage where he kept the truck. It was a rented space in an industrial district surrounded by abandoned warehouses and chain-link fences. The kind of place no one looked twice at. The kind of place where a man could hide a $50 million secret in plain sight. He unlocked the bay door and stepped inside. The F-100 sat under a canvas tarp, waiting. He pulled the cover off and stood there for a moment, looking at the rust, the dents, the faded paint. They're coming for you, old girl, he said softly. Victoria's lawyers. The courts. Maybe worse. He opened the hood. The Phoenix core gleamed in the dim light. 15 years old, but still perfect. Still revolutionary. Still carrying his wife's fingerprints on the components she'd machined herself. Marcus reached in and touched the main housing. Cool metal. Precise engineering. A dead woman's dream still alive. I'm done hiding, Dee. Done being afraid. He closed his eyes. Whatever happens next, I'm going to make sure they know your name, know what you built, know what they took from us. He closed the hood gently. Then he got to work. If they were going to take the truck, they'd have to find it first. And Marcus Webb had spent 15 years learning how to disappear. He had one more trick left. Angela Torres arrived at 7 a.m. sharp. She was younger than Marcus expected. Mid-30s, dark hair, pulled back, tight eyes that missed nothing. She carried a leather bag stuffed with notebooks and a digital recorder that looked like it had seen 100 interviews. "Mr. Webb?" She shook his hand firmly. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. Come in, coffee's fresh." She followed him into the apartment, her gaze sweeping across the photographs on every wall. Denise in the garage. Denise at NASA. Denise on their wedding day, young and radiant and full of hope. "Your wife?" "Yes." She was beautiful. She was brilliant. Marcus poured 2 cups and handed one to Angela. That's what mattered. They sat at his small kitchen table. Angela set up her recorder, tested the levels, then looked at him with the patient intensity of someone who had learned to wait for the truth. "Start wherever you want," she said. "I've got all day." Marcus took a sip of coffee, set the cup down, and began. "I met Denise in 1998, graduate program at MIT. She was studying material science, I was in aerospace engineering. We hated each other for the first 6 months." Angela smiled. "What changed?" "We got paired on a project, some theoretical nonsense about energy conservation in closed systems. Neither of us wanted to work together. But somewhere around the 3rd all-nighter, arguing about thermodynamics over cold pizza, I realized I was in love." "Did you tell her?" "Didn't have to. She kissed me first." Marcus's voice softened. "Said she couldn't focus with me looking at her like that. Might as well get it over with." Angela laughed quietly. "Sounds like she was direct." "Direct as a bullet, never wasted a word in her life." He paused. "That's what made her such a good engineer. No ego, no politics, just pure problem solving. She saw the world as a series of puzzles waiting to be cracked." "And the Phoenix core was one of those puzzles." Marcus nodded slowly. "The biggest one. We started working on it in 2004, right after we both got hired at NASA. The idea was simple. What if you could build an engine that recycled its own energy output? Not perpetual motion, that's impossible, but a system so efficient that it approached perpetual motion. 98–99% energy recovery." "That sounds revolutionary." "It is." Marcus leaned forward. "You understand what that means. Cars that barely need fuel. Power plants that run on almost nothing. The entire energy economy transformed overnight. And you built it. Denise built it. I just helped." He stood and retrieved a worn photograph from the shelf, Denise holding a metal cylinder the size of a cantaloupe, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. "That's the first working prototype, December 2007. We ran it for 6 hours straight with no external power input." Angela studied the photograph. "What happened next?" "We filed patents, started shopping the technology to manufacturers. Everyone was interested, but no one would commit. Too radical, they said. Too disruptive. The oil companies would bury it." "Were they right?" "We never got the chance to find out." Marcus's voice hardened. "Denise got diagnosed in March 2009. Stage 4 breast cancer. Already in her lymph nodes by the time they caught it." Angela set down her pen. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be angry." Marcus sat back down, his hands wrapped tight around his coffee cup. "The treatments cost everything we had. I left NASA to take care of her. We burned through our savings in 8 months. And while we were drowning, Charles Kingston came swimming up like a shark who'd smelled blood." "Victoria's father?" "The same. He showed up at our door with flowers and condolences. Said he'd heard about Denise's illness. Said he wanted to help. Let me guess. He didn't want to help." "Oh, he helped himself." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Offered to buy the Phoenix core patents for $2 million. Fair price, he said. Enough to cover Denise's treatment, and then some." "But you said no." "I said hell no. Those patents were Denise's legacy, her life's work. I wasn't selling them for any price." "What did Kingston do?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was flat, controlled. The voice of a man who had rehearsed this story in his nightmares for 15 years. He waited. 3 months. Until Denise was in hospice. Until I was sleeping 4 hours a night holding her hand watching her disappear. He took a breath. Then his lawyers showed up with paperwork claiming there were irregularities in our original patent filings. Said they could tie us up in court for years. Said by the time the legal fees were done, we'd have nothing left. That's extortion. That's business. At least that's what they called it. Marcus met Angela's eyes. I signed over the patents for $85,000, less than 3 months of Denise's treatment, and she died 3 weeks later, never knowing I'd given away everything she built. Angela was silent. Her recorder hummed softly in the space between them. I've carried that secret for 15 years, Marcus said. The guilt of it. The shame. Denise died thinking her work would change the world. Instead, Charles Kingston buried it in a vault and forgot about it. Until now. Until now. Marcus nodded. His daughter's trying to build it herself, failing, spending millions. And there I was mopping her floors, driving the only working prototype in existence, and she didn't even know. Why stay? Why work there? Marcus smiled grimly. Hiding in plain sight. I figured no one would look for a genius engineer in a janitor's coveralls. And I was right. Took them 5 years to figure it out. Angela leaned forward. Mr. Webb, if I publish this story, everything changes. Kingston's stock will tank. Victoria will face a PR nightmare. There might be lawsuits, investigations, criminal charges. Good. But you'll be in the middle of it. Your name, your face everywhere. The quiet life you've built. The quiet life I built was a lie. Marcus stood and walked to the window. I've spent 15 years pretending to be nobody, letting them win, dishonoring everything Denise believed in. He turned back to face Angela. I'm done hiding. Publish everything. Angela studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded, picked up her recorder and started a new file. Let's begin again, from the beginning. I want every detail. They talked for 6 hours. By the time Angela left, the sun was setting, and Marcus felt hollowed out. Emptied. Like he'd poured 15 years of grief and rage into that little digital recorder, and now there was nothing left inside him. His phone buzzed. Raymond Chen again. Marcus, I need to see you. Tonight. It's important. Marcus typed back, my apartment. 9 p.m. Then he sat in his empty kitchen and waited for whatever came next. Raymond showed up looking like he hadn't slept in days. Dark circles under his eyes shirt, wrinkled hands shaking as he accepted the beer Marcus offered. What's going on, Ray? Victoria's lost it. Raymond took a long drink. After you left, she called an emergency meeting. Told the whole engineering team to reverse engineer the Phoenix core from the security footage. Said anyone who couldn't deliver results by Friday was fired. That's impossible. You can't build that engine from grainy parking lot video. That's what Dr. Chen told her. She fired him on the spot. Marcus sat back. Chen's been there 20 years. 22. Walked out with a box of his things and Victoria didn't even look up from her phone. Raymond set down his beer. Marcus, she's going to destroy the company. The government deadline is in 18 days. Without Chen, without you, without a working prototype, we're done. That's not my problem anymore. I know it's not. Raymond leaned forward. But there are 300 people who work there. Engineers, technicians, admin staff. Most of them had nothing to do with what Victoria's father did to you. And they're all going to lose their jobs because she can't admit she needs help. Marcus said nothing. Lily's school is 2 blocks from the plant, Raymond continued. Half the parents work there. Half the teachers' spouses. When Kingston goes down, it takes the whole neighborhood with it. What do you want me to do? Ray, walk back in and hand them my life's work after everything they did? No, I want you to win. Raymond's eyes were intense now. I want you to beat them so badly that everyone knows the truth. But there has to be a way to do that without destroying innocent people. Marcus was quiet for a long time. He thought about Denise, about what she would have done. Our work should help people, she'd said over and over. That's the whole point. There's a journalist, Marcus finally said. Angela Torres. She's writing a story about Kingston, about the stolen patents, the whole thing. When does it publish? She said she needs a few days to verify everything, maybe a week. Raymond nodded slowly. A week, that gives us time. Time for what? I don't know yet, but Victoria's spiraling. The board is asking questions. The investors are nervous. Raymond stood up, some of the exhaustion lifting from his face. If that story drops at the right moment when she's most vulnerable, when the company's future is on the line, it could change everything. You want to coordinate time the story for maximum damage. I want to give 300 families a chance to survive. Raymond met Marcus's eyes. Help me find a way, Marcus. Please. Marcus looked at the photograph of Denise on the wall, at her smile, at the dreams they'd shared. I'll think about it, he said. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. The next 3 days were chaos. Victoria Kingston launched a full assault. Her lawyers filed an emergency injunction to seize Marcus's truck, claiming it contained misappropriated intellectual property. Police showed up at his apartment with a warrant, but the truck wasn't there. Marcus had moved it the night before to a storage facility 40 miles outside the city. Registered under a name Victoria's people would never think to search. The officers found nothing but an empty garage bay and an old man who politely declined to answer questions. Where's the vehicle, Mr. Webb? What vehicle? The 1972 Ford F-100 registered in your name. Sold it years ago. Don't remember who to. My memory's not what it used to be. The officers exchanged frustrated looks. Without the truck, they had nothing. We'll be back, the lead officer said. I'll make coffee. After they left, Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Let them search. Let them dig. They wouldn't find Denise's engine. Not until he was ready to show the world. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Webb, this is Victoria Kingston. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. I don't think we have anything to discuss. I disagree. Victoria's voice was strained, desperate. Nothing like the confident CEO who'd sprayed his truck with foam a week ago. I'm prepared to make you a real offer. Not threats, not legal games, a genuine partnership. I've heard your offers. Not this one. $50 million, cash, for the Phoenix core technology and your expertise. You'd retain 20% of all future licensing revenue. Your name on every patent, every product. Full credit for the work you and your wife did. Marcus was silent. It's more than fair, Victoria pressed. More than my father ever would have offered. I'm trying to make this right. Make it right. Marcus laughed bitterly. You fired me. You tried to steal my truck. You've got lawyers hunting me like I'm a criminal. And now you want to make it right? I was angry, scared. The company's falling apart, and I didn't know what else to do. That's not my concern. It should be. Victoria's voice hardened slightly. That story you're working on with Angela Torres, I know about it. My people intercepted her communications. If it publishes, yes, it will hurt me. But it will also destroy any chance of the Phoenix core reaching the market. The technology will get tied up in lawsuits for years, decades maybe. Is that what Denise would have wanted? Marcus gripped the phone tighter. Don't you dare speak her name. I'm just telling you the truth. You can have revenge or you can have legacy. You can't have both. The line was quiet. Think about it, Victoria said. 50 million, full credit. The Phoenix core finally changing the world like you always dreamed. All you have to do is work with me instead of against me. And if I say no, then we both lose everything. Victoria paused. I'll call again tomorrow. Think about what matters more, making me pay or making your wife proud. The line went dead. Marcus sat in the darkness of his apartment, the phone still pressed to his ear, and felt the weight of the choice before him. Angela Torres called him that night. "We have a problem." Marcus sat up straighter. "What kind of problem?" "Victoria's lawyers sent a cease and desist to my editor. Claim the story contains defamatory material and threatened a $100 million lawsuit if we publish." "Can they do that?" "They can try, but my editor's nervous. He wants more verification before we go forward. Independent sources, documentation, something beyond your testimony." Marcus's heart sank. "What do you need?" "Proof of the original patent filings. Proof that Kingston's acquisition was coercive. Anything that shows your side of the story is true." "Most of that was destroyed, or buried in Kingston's archives." "Then we need to find it." Angela paused. "Marcus, I believe you. But belief isn't enough. Without documentation, this story dies." After she hung up, Marcus sat alone in the silence. Proof. Documentation. Evidence buried somewhere in Victoria Kingston's company. He couldn't get it himself. He'd been fired, banned from the premises, probably flagged in their security system, but someone else could. He picked up his phone and called Raymond Chen. "Ray, I need a favor." "Name it." "The files about the Phoenix Core acquisition, the original paperwork from 2011, they'd be in the legal archive somewhere, basement level probably. Can you get to them?" Raymond was quiet for a moment. "That's breaking and entering. Corporate espionage. If I get caught—" "I know, I'm asking anyway." Another long pause. "Victoria fired Dr. Chen yesterday. A man who gave 22 years to that company, and she threw him out like garbage." Raymond's voice was hard now. "She's threatening to cut benefits for the engineering team if we don't hit impossible deadlines. She doesn't care about any of us." "Is that a yes?" "That's a yes." Raymond took a breath. "I'll do it tomorrow night, after the security shift change. Less people around." "Ray, thank you." "Don't thank me yet. If this goes wrong, we're both finished." Marcus hung up and looked at Denise's photograph. "Almost there, baby," he whispered. "Almost there." The next 24 hours crawled by like years. Marcus couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. He paced his apartment, checked his phone every 30 seconds, imagined 100 different ways everything could go wrong. What if Raymond got caught? What if the files weren't there? What if Victoria had already destroyed the evidence? At 11 p.m., his phone finally buzzed. "Got them. Meet me at the diner on 5th. Come alone." Marcus grabbed his jacket and ran. Raymond was waiting in a back booth, a manila folder thick with papers spread across the table. He looked pale but triumphant. "Everything's here," Raymond said as Marcus slid into the seat across from him. "The original acquisition documents, internal memos, correspondence between Charles Kingston and his lawyers about managing the Webb situation." Marcus grabbed this folder with shaking hands. The first document was a memo dated March 2011, Webb showing signs of financial distress. Recommend accelerating legal pressure to force settlement. The second was worse. Webb's wife entered hospice care. Optimal timing for final offer. And the third, the one that made Marcus's blood run cold, was a handwritten note in Charles Kingston's script. Denise Webb deceased. Acquisition complete. Phoenix Core secured. Recommend archival status until market conditions improve. They had waited for her to die. They had calculated the timing down to the day. "My God," Marcus whispered. "They killed her." "Not directly," Raymond said quietly. "But they knew. They knew exactly what they were doing." Marcus stared at the documents. 15 years of grief and rage compressed into a few sheets of paper. Proof of everything he'd suffered. Everything Denise had lost. "This is enough," he said. "This is more than enough. There's one more thing." Raymond pulled out a final document. "I found this in a separate file. A memo from Victoria dated last month." Marcus read it, then read it again. Subject: Phoenix Core Revival. The technology my father acquired in 2011 remains our most valuable asset. I recommend immediate development using all available resources. The original inventor is currently employed in our maintenance division. Recommend leveraging this asset before he becomes aware of the technology's true value. She knew. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. She knew who I was before any of this started. Before the parking lot, before the fire extinguisher. She knew the whole time. And she let you mop her floors anyway. Marcus closed his eyes. The betrayal was complete. Total. Everything Victoria had said about not knowing, about wanting to make things right, lies. All lies. We publish everything, Marcus said. Tomorrow. No more waiting. Raymond nodded. I'll call Angela. They left the diner separately, Raymond heading home, Marcus walking the empty streets with the folder clutched to his chest like a sacred text. The truth was finally coming out. And Victoria Kingston's empire was about to burn. He was halfway home when the black SUV pulled up beside him. Two men in suits stepped out. Big, professional, the kind of men who solved problems for people with money. Mr. Webb. The taller one flashed a badge too fast to read. Ms. Kingston would like a word. Marcus backed up. I've got nothing to say to her. That wasn't a request. They grabbed him before he could run. The folder spilled across the sidewalk as they shoved him into the SUV. Papers scattered in the wind, 15 years of evidence, dancing away into the darkness. The door slammed shut. The SUV pulled away, and Marcus Webb disappeared into the night. The SUV smelled like leather and money. Marcus sat between the two men, his heart pounding against his ribs, his mind racing through possibilities. Kidnapping, false imprisonment. Whatever came next, Victoria had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Where are you taking me? Neither man answered. The driver kept his eyes on the road. The city lights blurred past the tinted windows. I asked you a question. The taller man, the one who'd flashed the badge, finally spoke. Ms. Kingston wants to talk, that's all. She could have called. She tried. You didn't listen. Marcus thought about the papers scattered on the sidewalk. The evidence. 15 years of proof dancing away in the wind. Raymond would find them. Raymond would know something was wrong. He had to believe that. The SUV turned into an underground parking garage beneath a glass tower Marcus recognized. Kingston Automotive Headquarters. They weren't taking him to some abandoned warehouse. They were taking him to Victoria's office. The men escorted him through a service elevator, past empty hallways, into the executive suite on the top floor. The building was dark at this hour. No witnesses, no employees, just Victoria Kingston standing by her window looking out at the city lights. She didn't turn around when they entered. Leave us, she said. The men hesitated. Ma'am, are you sure? I said leave us. They left. The door clicked shut behind them. Victoria turned to face Marcus. She looked different than he'd ever seen her. No power suit, no perfect makeup. She wore jeans and a wrinkled blouse, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Dark circles under her eyes. She looked human, maybe for the first time. You had me kidnapped, Marcus said flatly. I had you brought here. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. Victoria walked to her desk and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. She held one out to Marcus. He didn't take it. Suit yourself. She drank from her own glass, then set it down. I know about the documents, Raymond Chen, Angela Torres, the story you're planning to publish. Marcus's jaw tightened. Then you know it's over. Nothing's over. Victoria sat down heavily in her chair. Do you know why my father started this company? I don't care. He grew up poor, south side of Chicago. His father worked the steel mills until his lungs gave out. His mother cleaned houses for rich people who never learned her name. Victoria stared at her whiskey. He swore he'd never be invisible like them, never be powerless. He built this company from nothing, deal by deal, handshake by handshake. And yes, some of those deals were dirty. Some of those handshakes crushed people who got in his way. People like me. People like you. Victoria met his eyes. I'm not making excuses. What he did to you was wrong. What he did to your wife was unforgivable. But you need to understand something, Marcus. I didn't know. Not until last week. I swear to you I didn't know. The memo says different. Victoria frowned. What memo? The one you wrote last month. About leveraging the asset in your maintenance division. About the Phoenix Core revival. Victoria's face went pale. I never wrote that. I saw it. Your signature. Your letterhead. That's impossible. I didn't even know you existed until you fixed the prototype in front of those investors. Victoria stood up abruptly, pacing. Someone's setting me up. Someone inside the company. Convenient story. It's the truth. Victoria spun to face him. Think about it, Marcus. If I'd known who you were from the beginning, why would I humiliate you in the parking lot? Why spray your truck with foam in front of 300 witnesses? That doesn't make sense. Marcus hesitated. She had a point. Victoria was ruthless, but she wasn't stupid. If she'd known about the Phoenix Core, she would have approached him quietly, privately, not created a public spectacle that drew attention. Then who wrote it? I don't know. But someone wanted us to destroy each other. Victoria grabbed her phone and pulled up a document. Look at this. The board has been pressuring me for months to step down, led by a man named Harold Foster. He was my father's chief financial officer. He's been with the company longer than I've been alive. What does that have to do with me? Foster knew about the Phoenix Core acquisition. He was there when my father negotiated it. He knew exactly what those patents were worth. Victoria's voice was intense now. If he could prove that I mismanaged the technology that I drove away, the only person who could make it work, the board would remove me. He'd take over, and he'd have access to everything you built. Marcus processed this slowly. You're saying Foster planted that memo. I'm saying someone did, and Foster's the only one with motive, means, and opportunity. Why should I believe you? Victoria set down her phone. She walked to a cabinet in the corner of her office and pulled out a thick folder. Because of this. She handed it to Marcus. Inside were photographs, documents, financial records going back years. Evidence of Harold Foster's private dealings. Shell companies, hidden accounts. A pattern of embezzlement that had been draining Kingston Automotive for over a decade. I found this 3 months ago, Victoria said. I've been building a case against him quietly, but every time I get close, evidence disappears. Witnesses change their stories. It's like he knows my every move. Why tell me this? Because you're the only person he hasn't gotten to yet. The only person who might actually tell the truth. Victoria's voice cracked slightly. Marcus, I know you hate me. You have every right. But if Foster takes over this company, he'll bury the Phoenix Core just like my father did. It'll never see the light of day. Marcus looked at the folder in his hands, then at Victoria, then at the door where freedom waited. And if I help you, what do I get? Everything. Full ownership of the Phoenix Core patents returned to you legally. Complete creative control over development. Royalties on every product. And a public apology from me from the company acknowledging what my father did to you and Denise. That's a lot. It's what you deserve. Victoria's eyes were wet now. I've spent my whole life trying to live up to my father's legacy, trying to be as strong as he was, as ruthless. But his legacy is built on people like you, people he crushed to get ahead. I don't want that to be my story, Marcus. I want to be better. Marcus was silent for a long moment. He thought about Denise, about what she would say if she could see him now. People can change, baby. You just have to give them the chance. The documents Raymond found, the ones your men scattered on the sidewalk, they're still out there. They prove everything your father did. I know. If Angela publishes that story, your company is finished. Foster wins. I know that too. Marcus studied Victoria's face, looking for the lie, looking for the angle. He didn't find one. I want the apology in writing, he said finally. Before anything else. Signed by you, witnessed by legal counsel, admitting what Charles Kingston did to me and Denise. Done. And I want to meet this Harold Foster, face to face, before I make any decisions. Victoria nodded slowly. That can be arranged. Marcus set down the folder. Then we have a lot to talk about. The meeting with Harold Foster happened the next morning. Victoria had arranged it in the main conference room, neutral ground. Foster arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, immaculately dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Marcus's annual salary. He was older than Marcus expected. Mid-70s, silver hair, swept back eyes like a hawk's. The kind of man who had seen everything and trusted no one. Mr. Webb? Foster extended a hand. I've heard so much about you. Marcus didn't take it. Have you? Of course. Your work at NASA was legendary. A tragedy what happened afterward. Foster withdrew his hand smoothly, no offense taken. I've always believed the Phoenix Corps was Kingston's most valuable asset. Unfortunately, Charles never had the vision to develop it properly. But you do. I have the resources, the connections, the long-term thinking this technology requires. Foster smiled warmly. Victoria is a talented executive, but she's impulsive, short-sighted. She nearly destroyed our relationship with the government contract through poor planning. I fixed that. You did, which is exactly why I wanted to meet you. Foster leaned forward. Marcus, what if I told you there was a way to develop the Phoenix Corps without Kingston Automotive? A new company properly funded with you as Chief Technology Officer and majority stakeholder. Marcus glanced at Victoria. She was standing by the window, her face unreadable. Keep talking, Marcus said. It's simple. Victoria's position is untenable. The board will remove her within the month. When that happens, I'll restructure the company's assets. The Phoenix Corps patents will be transferred to a new entity, one that I control, but where you'd have complete technical authority. And what do you want in return? Your cooperation, your expertise, and your silence about certain historical irregularities. You mean the theft of my patents? Foster's smile didn't waver. I mean unfortunate business decisions made by a man who's no longer alive to defend himself. There's no value in relitigating the past, Marcus, only in building the future. Marcus felt the anger rising in his chest. The same smooth words, the same empty promises, the same assumption that he could be bought, manipulated, controlled. You knew, Marcus said quietly. Foster's smile flickered. I'm sorry. You knew what Charles was doing. You were there. You helped him time the acquisition for when my wife was dying. You calculated the optimal moment to destroy us. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Marcus pulled out his phone and played a recording. Foster's voice from the internal memos Raymond had found. Webb's wife entered hospice care. Optimal timing for final offer. Foster's face went white. Did you think I came here without evidence? Marcus stood up. Did you think I was stupid enough to walk into a meeting with the man who helped destroy my life without proof of what he did? Foster recovered quickly. His smile returned, but it was different now. Colder, more dangerous. Even if that recording is real, it proves nothing. I was following Charles's orders. Any competent lawyer would argue I was simply doing my job. Maybe. But it'll be enough to launch an investigation. Enough to make the board ask questions. Enough to destroy your reputation. And what about your reputation? Foster's voice hardened. You're a janitor, Marcus. A 58-year-old man who mops floors for a living. Who's going to believe you over me? Angela Torres will. Foster went still. The journalist. She's publishing tomorrow. Everything. The acquisition, the timing, the internal memos, your role in all of it. By this time next week, the whole world will know what Kingston Industries did to me and Denise. You're bluffing. Try me. The two men stared at each other across the conference table. 15 years of history compressed into a single moment. Foster moved first. He lunged for Marcus's phone, trying to grab it to destroy the evidence. But Marcus was faster. He stepped back, letting Foster stumble past him, and grabbed the older man by the collar. "You ruined my life," Marcus said, his voice shaking with rage. "You helped steal everything I built. You waited for my wife to die so you could pick my bones clean. Let go of me. And now you think you can do it again, buy me off with promises, manipulate me into silence." Marcus shoved Foster against the wall. "I'm not the broken man I was 15 years ago. I've got nothing left to lose, and that makes me more dangerous than you can possibly imagine." The door burst open. Victoria's security team rushed in, pulling Marcus away from Foster, separating the two men. "Enough!" Victoria stepped between them. "Both of you, enough!" Foster straightened his suit, his composure cracking. "This man assaulted me. I want him arrested." "You'll get nothing from me," Victoria said coldly. "Victoria, be reasonable. I heard everything, Harold. The recording, the admission, the way you helped my father destroy this man." Victoria's voice was steel. "You're done. Security will escort you from the building. Your access codes are revoked. Your office is being searched as we speak." Foster's face contorted with fury. "You can't do this. The board will receive copies of everything I've found on you, the embezzlement, the shell companies, the evidence I've been gathering for months." Victoria smiled coldly. "Did you really think I didn't know what you were doing, Harold? Did you think I was that stupid?" For the first time, Foster looked truly afraid. "Victoria, listen to me. Get him out of here." Security dragged Foster from the room. His protests echoed down the hallway until a door slammed shut and silence returned. Victoria and Marcus stood alone in the conference room, breathing hard, the weight of what had just happened settling over them. "You planned this," Marcus said finally. "I suspected it was Foster from the beginning. I needed you to confirm it." Victoria turned to face him. "I'm sorry I couldn't tell you beforehand. I wasn't sure you'd trust me enough to play along." "I don't trust you." "I know. But maybe someday you will." Victoria walked to the window and looked out at the city. "My whole life I've been trying to prove I deserved what my father built, that I earned my place. But the truth is, I was standing on a foundation of other people's suffering. Your suffering." She turned back to Marcus. "I can't undo what he did. Can't bring Denise back. Can't give you the 15 years you lost. But I can try to make the Phoenix Core what it was always meant to be. Something that helps people. Something that makes the world better." Marcus thought about his wife, about the dreams they'd shared, about all the nights they'd spent in their garage believing they could change everything. "Denise would have liked you," he said quietly. "The real you, not the CEO, the woman underneath." Victoria's eyes glistened. Would she? She always believed people could be better than they were. She'd see that in you. They stood in silence for a moment. Two people who had started as enemies finding something unexpected in the wreckage. "So what happens now?" Victoria asked. "Now we finish what Denise started." Marcus extended his hand. "Partners." Victoria looked at his hand, then at his face. Then she smiled a real smile, the first one he'd ever seen from her. "Partners." She shook his hand. Angela Torres published the story that weekend, but it wasn't the story she'd originally planned. Instead of an exposé about Victoria Kingston, it became something larger. A narrative about corporate greed, stolen dreams, and the possibility of redemption. The headline read, "The Phoenix Rises, How a Janitor's Secret Engine is Changing the Automotive Industry." The article detailed everything: Charles Kingston's theft, Harold Foster's manipulation, Marcus and Denise's original vision. But it also told the story of Victoria's transformation, how she'd uncovered her father's crimes and chosen to make things right. The response was overwhelming. Within 48 hours, the story had been shared 2 million times. Within a week, Marcus Webb was on the cover of Time magazine. Within a month, 3 major automakers had approached Kingston Automotive about licensing the Phoenix Core technology. But none of that mattered as much as what happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon, 3 weeks after the story broke. Marcus drove the F-100 to the cemetery on the outskirts of Detroit. He'd made this drive 1,000 times over the past 15 years, but today felt different. Today, he had something to tell Denise. He knelt by her headstone, running his fingers over the engraved letters. Denise Marie Webb, beloved wife. Brilliant mind, eternal dreamer. "Hey, baby," he said softly. "I know it's been a while since I talked. Really talked. I've been busy." A bird sang somewhere in the trees. The afternoon sun was warm on his back. "They're building it D, the Phoenix Core, for real this time. Victoria's company my designs were making it happen. By next year there'll be cars on the road running on our engine, your engine." He wiped his eyes. "I spent 15 years being angry, being broken, hiding from the world because I thought the fight was over." Marcus's voice cracked. "But you never stopped fighting, did you? Even at the end, even in that hospital bed you were drawing diagrams, making plans, believing." He pulled out the worn photograph of Denise, the one he'd carried in his wallet for 15 years, and propped it against her headstone. "I'm sorry I gave up on your dream. I'm sorry I let them win for so long. But I'm back now. And I'm going to make sure the whole world remembers your name." He stood up slowly, his knees aching, his heart full. "I love you, Dee. I'll always love you. And this isn't goodbye. This is just the beginning." He walked back to the truck, climbed in, and turned the key. The engine roared to life. That perfect, impossible sound. Denise's sound. And for the first time in 15 years, Marcus Webb drove away from that cemetery with hope instead of grief. The first prototype rolled off the assembly line on a Tuesday morning in March. Marcus stood in the Kingston production facility, surrounded by engineers, technicians, and executives who had worked 18-hour days for 3 months to make this moment happen. The vehicle was a sleek sedan, midnight blue, with the Phoenix Core emblem etched into the hood. "Well?" Victoria stood beside him, her voice tight with anticipation. "What do you think?" Marcus walked slowly around the car, running his hand along the fender, peering through the windows at the leather interior. Everything was perfect, professional, production ready, but it wasn't the same. "It's beautiful," he said. "Denise would have loved it." But Marcus opened the hood and looked at the engine. The Phoenix Core, mass-produced, standardized, optimized for manufacturing efficiency. Every component precision-engineered to exact specifications. "It's not the same as ours," he said quietly. "The original, the one in my truck." Victoria frowned. "It's the same technology, same principles. We followed your designs exactly." "I know, but Denise and I built ours by hand. Every bolt, every wire, every weld, we did it together. Late nights in our garage arguing about thermodynamics, celebrating small victories." Marcus closed the hood gently. "This is better in every measurable way, but it doesn't have her fingerprints on it." Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she put her hand on his shoulder. "It has her spirit, Marcus, her vision. That's what matters." Marcus nodded slowly. She was right. This was what they had worked for. What Denise had dreamed about. The Phoenix Core finally reaching the world. So why did it feel like he was losing her all over again? "Let's start it up," he said. The lead engineer, a young woman named Dr. Sarah Mitchell, climbed into the driver's seat. She'd been Raymond Chen's protege before he left for a new position at Tesla, and she'd thrown herself into the Phoenix Core project with a passion that reminded Marcus of Denise. "Ready?" Sarah called out. "Ready," Marcus replied. She turned the key. The engine hummed to life. Smooth, powerful, perfect. The same harmonic that had sung from Marcus's truck for 15 years, now emerging from a production vehicle that would soon be on roads around the world. The engineers erupted in applause. Victoria grabbed Marcus's arm, grinning. Cameras flashed as the PR team documented the historic moment. But Marcus just stood there listening to that sound, tears streaming down his face. "You okay?" Victoria asked softly. "Yeah." Marcus wiped his eyes. "Yeah, I'm okay. Just remembering." Victoria squeezed his arm. "She's proud of you, Marcus. Wherever she is, she's proud." Marcus hoped she was right. The government contract came through 2 weeks later. $2.3 billion over 5 years for the development of Phoenix Core technology across multiple vehicle platforms. The largest clean energy automotive deal in American history. Kingston Automotive's stock price tripled overnight. But success brought new problems. Marcus was in Victoria's office when the first lawsuit arrived. A process server walked in, dropped a thick envelope on her desk, and walked out without a word. Victoria opened it, scanned the contents, and went pale. "What is it?" Marcus asked. "Harold Foster. He's suing us." Victoria's voice was hollow. "Wrongful termination, defamation, breach of fiduciary duty. He's claiming that everything I found on him was fabricated, that I conspired with you to destroy his reputation. That's insane. The evidence? He's saying we planted it, that you manipulated me into believing his lies." Victoria threw the lawsuit on her desk. "He's asking for $500 million in damages." Marcus picked up the document and read through it. Foster's lawyers were good. They'd constructed a narrative that painted Victoria as a naive young executive manipulated by a bitter former employee seeking revenge. Every piece of evidence they'd found was dismissed as circumstantial or potentially forged. Can he win? His lawyers seem to think so. They're the best money can buy. Victoria slumped into her chair. And that's not the worst part. What's worse than a $500 million lawsuit? This. Victoria pulled up an email on her computer. From the Department of Energy. They're reviewing our contract due to concerns about corporate governance and leadership stability. Translation, they're thinking about pulling the deal. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Because of Foster. Because of the lawsuit. Because of the publicity. Because they're government bureaucrats who hate risk. Victoria's voice cracked. 3 months of work. $2.3 billion. Everything we built together. And it's all falling apart. Marcus sat down across from her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "What do we do?" he finally asked. "I don't know." Victoria looked at him with exhausted eyes. "For the first time in my life, I genuinely don't know." The next few weeks were brutal. Foster's lawyers launched a media campaign painting Victoria as unstable and Marcus as a con artist. Anonymous sources leaked damaging stories to business publications. Kingston's stock price began to slide. Meanwhile, the Department of Energy investigation dragged on. Inspectors showed up unannounced. Documents were requested, reviewed, questioned. Every aspect of the Phoenix Core project was scrutinized. Marcus threw himself into work trying to ignore the chaos. He spent 18-hour days in the engineering lab refining the production process, training new technicians, solving problems that arose with the manufacturing line. But the stress was wearing on him. He was 58 years old. His body ached from lack of sleep. His mind raced with worry, even when he tried to rest. One night around 2 a.m., Sarah Mitchell found him slumped over a workbench in the lab. Marcus, wake up." He jerked awake, disoriented. What's wrong?" "You fell asleep. Again." Sarah handed him a cup of coffee. "This is the 3rd time this week. You're going to kill yourself at this rate." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're exhausted, you're stressed, and you're trying to carry this entire project on your shoulders." Sarah sat down beside him. "Denise wouldn't want this. You know that." Marcus took a sip of coffee. It was bitter and lukewarm, but it helped clear his head. "She was always the strong one," he said quietly. "When things got hard, she'd find a way through. I just followed her lead. And now I don't know what I'm doing. I'm an engineer, Sarah. I build things. I don't know how to fight lawsuits and government investigations and PR wars." Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled out her phone and showed him something. "Look at this. It's a message board for automotive engineers. There's a thread about the Phoenix core." Marcus looked at the screen. Hundreds of comments all discussing his technology. Questions about the regenerative loop. Debates about manufacturing processes. Excitement about the possibilities. "These are engineers all over the world," Sarah said. "They've been following your story since Angela's article. They believe in what you built. They're rooting for you." Marcus scrolled through the comments. One caught his eye. Webb and his wife were decades ahead of their time. "If the Phoenix core succeeds, it changes everything about how we think about energy." "I never wanted to be famous," Marcus said. "Too late for that." Sarah smiled. "But maybe fame isn't the worst thing. Maybe it means people are paying attention, and maybe that attention is exactly what we need to fight back against Foster." Marcus thought about this. The media campaign against them had been devastatingly effective, but they'd been playing defense the whole time, reacting instead of acting. "What if they changed that, get Victoria?" Marcus said. "I have an idea." The press conference was held 3 days later. Every major news outlet showed up. Cameras, reporters, photographers packed into the Kingston auditorium, hungry for the next chapter in the story that had captivated the nation. Victoria spoke first. She was poised, professional, every inch the CEO. She addressed the lawsuit, directly denied Foster's allegations calmly, and promised full cooperation with all investigations. Then she introduced Marcus. He walked to the podium, feeling every one of his 58 years. The lights were blinding. The cameras clicked like machine guns. He had never been comfortable with public speaking. That had always been Denise's strength. But this was too important to hide from. "My name is Marcus Webb," he began. 15 years ago, I was an aerospace engineer at NASA. I had a wife named Denise who was the love of my life. Together we built something we believed could change the world." He told the whole story. The cancer, the stolen patents, the years of invisibility, the fire extinguisher in the parking lot, the partnership with Victoria. Everything. "Harold Foster was there when my wife was dying." Marcus said, his voice steady, despite the emotion behind it. "He helped time the acquisition of our patents for the moment when I was most vulnerable. He waited for her to enter hospice before making the final offer, and now he's trying to destroy the technology she gave her life to create." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Foster is betting that money and lawyers can bury the truth. He's counting on people giving up, getting tired, moving on to the next story." Marcus looked directly into the cameras. "But I've spent 15 years waiting for this moment. 15 years protecting my wife's dream. I'm not going anywhere." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the worn photograph of Denise. "This is my wife. She believed that the Phoenix core could help millions of people. She believed that good ideas survive, that truth matters." Marcus held up the photograph so the cameras could see. "I'm asking everyone watching to remember her. Remember what we built together. And don't let people like Harold Foster win." The auditorium was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then someone else. Then the whole room erupted in applause. Victoria stepped up beside Marcus, put her hand on his shoulder, and whispered, "You did it." He hoped she was right. The response was overwhelming. Within hours, #Justice for Denise was trending worldwide. Engineers, scientists, academics came forward with testimonials about the Phoenix core's potential. Former Kingston employees who had witnessed Foster's behavior over the years began speaking to journalists. Angela Torres published a follow-up article with new evidence, financial records, showing Foster had been skimming from Kingston for years, funneling money to offshore accounts. documents proving he had personally overseen the Webb acquisition in 2011. The Department of Energy quietly announced that their investigation had found no wrongdoing in the Phoenix Core project. The contract would proceed as planned. And then the final blow: Foster's own lawyers quit. They'd been embarrassed by the public backlash, worried about their reputation. Without legal representation, Foster's lawsuit collapsed. Victoria called Marcus with the news at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning. "It's over," she said. "Foster's dropping the suit. His lawyers negotiated a settlement where he walks away with nothing and agrees never to make public statements about Kingston or the Phoenix Core again." Marcus sat down heavily on his bed. "It's really over. It's really over." Victoria's voice was thick with emotion. "We won, Marcus. We actually won." He didn't know what to say. For 15 years he had lived with the weight of defeat. The stolen patents, the buried technology, the belief that justice would never come. And now somehow it had. "Denise," he whispered into the empty apartment. "We did it, baby. We finally did it." The next few months were a blur of activity. The first Phoenix Core vehicles hit the market in August. Reviews were ecstatic. Consumer Reports called it the most significant automotive advancement in 50 years. Environmental groups celebrated the dramatic reduction in emissions. Engineering publications devoted entire issues to analyzing the technology. Marcus became a celebrity whether he wanted to or not. Interview requests flooded in. Universities offered honorary degrees. The president invited him to the White House. Through it all, Victoria remained his anchor. She handled the business side, managed the media, protected him from the worst of the attention. They made an unlikely team, the grieving engineer and the reformed CEO. But somehow it worked. One evening, after a particularly exhausting press event, they sat together in Victoria's office, sharing a bottle of bourbon. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said. "Sure." "Do you ever regret it coming forward, I mean? Losing your privacy? Becoming this?" Marcus thought about the question. The old Marcus the janitor, who had hidden for 15 years, would have said yes without hesitation. He had valued his invisibility, his quiet grief, his solitary communion with Denise's memory. But that man felt like a stranger now. "No," he said finally. "I don't regret it. Even with everything Foster put us through, the lawsuits, the investigation, the stress. Even with all of that." Marcus took a sip of bourbon. "Denise used to say that the Phoenix Core wasn't just about energy. It was about hope, about proving that good ideas could survive even when powerful people tried to bury them." "She sounds like she was remarkable." "She was." Marcus smiled sadly. "And the thing is, Victoria, I lost her either way. Whether I stayed hidden or came forward, she was still gone. But this way, at least, her dream lives on. At least people know her name." Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she raised her glass. "To Denise." "To Denise." They drank in comfortable silence. "What about you?" Marcus asked. "Any regrets?" Victoria laughed bitterly. "Too many to count. I spent years being my father's daughter. Ruthless, ambitious, willing to step on anyone to get ahead. I told myself it was just business, just survival. And now I see all the people he hurt, all the damage he did." Victoria stared at her glass. "Including you, including Denise. I can never make up for what he took from you, Marcus. I know that. But I can try to be different. I can try to build something he never could." "What's that?" "Something worth being proud of." Marcus nodded slowly. He understood that desire. The need to create meaning from pain. To transform suffering into purpose. "You're already doing it," he said. "The Phoenix Core. The Clean Energy Initiative. The way you've transformed this company. Your father never could have done any of that. He never would have wanted to." "Exactly." Marcus met her eyes. You're not him, Victoria. You never were. And the sooner you stop measuring yourself against his shadow, the sooner you'll see the person you've actually become. Victoria's eyes glistened. Who's that? Someone your father could never understand. Someone who chose to do the right thing, even when it cost her everything. Marcus smiled. Someone Denise would have liked. Victoria wiped her eyes. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Denise could always see the best in people, even when they couldn't see it themselves. She would have seen it in you. They sat in silence for a long moment. The city lights twinkled outside the window. The bourbon warmed their stomachs. Thank you, Marcus, Victoria said finally, for giving me a chance, for believing I could be better. Thank you for proving me right. Victoria smiled, that real smile he'd come to recognize, so different from the cold mask she'd worn when they first met. Partners. Partners. They clinked glasses. The call from the Smithsonian came in November. Victoria took it in her office, with Marcus sitting across from her. The voice on the other end belonged to Dr. Robert Hayes, curator of the American Innovation Wing. Ms. Kingston, we'd like to discuss a proposal with you and Mr. Webb. We're listening? The Phoenix Core story has captured the nation's attention. The stolen patents, the years of struggle, the eventual triumph, it's a uniquely American narrative. We'd like to honor that narrative with a permanent exhibit. Marcus leaned forward. What kind of exhibit? We want to tell the complete story, from Denise Webb's original designs to the production vehicles rolling off your assembly line today. But the centerpiece would be something truly special. What's that? Dr. Hayes paused. Mr. Webb's original truck, the 1972 Ford F-100 with the first Phoenix Core prototype. We'd like to display it at the Smithsonian as a symbol of innovation, perseverance, and the American dream. Marcus felt his chest tighten. The truck. Denise's truck. The vehicle he had driven every day for 15 years, protecting it, hiding it, cherishing it as the last physical connection to his wife. I need to think about it, he said. Of course. Take all the time you need. After Victoria hung up, she looked at Marcus with concern. You don't have to do it. The truck is yours. No one would blame you for keeping it. Marcus stood and walked to the window. The Detroit skyline stretched before him, transformed by the success of the past year. New jobs, new hope, new possibilities, all flowing from the technology he and Denise had created in their garage. She would have wanted this, he said quietly. Denise. She would have wanted the truck to mean something bigger than just me. Are you sure? Marcus thought about the storage facility where he'd hidden the F-100 during the worst of the conflict with Foster. About the nights he'd spent there alone, talking to Denise's photograph, trying to find the strength to keep going. The truck had been his sanctuary, his connection to the past, his reminder of everything he'd lost. But it had also been a prison, a way of staying stuck in grief instead of moving forward. I'm sure, Marcus said. Call Dr. Hayes back. Tell him he can have the truck. Victoria stood and walked over to him. Marcus, are you really okay with this? He turned to face her. I've been holding on to that truck like a lifeline for 15 years. But Denise isn't in the metal and the engine. She's in the idea, the dream, the technology that's going to change the world. He looked out the window again. It's time to let go. Victoria put her hand on his arm. You're the bravest person I know. Marcus laughed softly. I'm a 58-year-old man who hid in a janitor's closet for half a decade. I'm not brave. I'm just finally ready. Same thing, isn't it? Maybe it was. Marcus didn't know anymore. All he knew was that something had shifted inside him. The weight he'd carried for 15 years was lighter now. Still there, but bearable. He pulled out his phone and looked at the photograph of Denise one more time. I'm giving them the truck, baby, he whispered. I hope you understand. In his heart, he knew she did. The ceremony was scheduled for December. The Smithsonian would unveil the exhibit with full fanfare, press coverage, dignitaries, the whole production. But before that happened, Marcus had one more thing to do. On a cold afternoon in late November, he drove the F-100 through Detroit one last time. Past the Kingston factory where the Phoenix Corps vehicles were built. Past the apartment where he'd lived alone for 15 years. Past the hospital where Denise had taken her last breath. He parked at their old house, the garage where everything had started. The house had been sold years ago, but the new owners had kept the garage exactly as it was. They were fans of the Phoenix Corps story they'd told him. They wanted to preserve the history. Marcus sat in the truck engine idling and remembered. Denise covered in grease, arguing about thermal coefficients. Denise dancing to old Motown songs while they worked. Denise crying with joy when the first prototype actually ran. Denise holding his hand in the hospital, making him promise to never give up. "I kept my promise, baby," Marcus said to the empty cab. "I never gave up. And now your dream is going to live forever." He turned off the engine for the last time. The silence was profound. Complete. Final. Then he climbed out of the truck, closed the door gently, and walked away. Behind him, the F-100 sat still and quiet, waiting for its journey to the Smithsonian. And somewhere, somehow, Marcus knew that Denise was smiling. The morning of the Smithsonian ceremony, Marcus Webb woke up at 4 a.m. and couldn't go back to sleep. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence of his apartment. For 15 years, this had been his sanctuary, his hiding place, the small, cramped space where he had nursed his grief and guarded his secrets. Today, all of that would change. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Victoria Carr picking you up at 8. "Don't be late." Marcus smiled despite his nerves. Victoria Kingston ordering him around. Some things never changed. He got up, showered, and put on the suit she had bought for him. Italian wool charcoal gray, perfectly tailored. It felt strange on his body, too expensive, too refined for a man who had spent 5 years in janitor's coveralls. But today wasn't about who he had been. It was about who he was becoming. At 7:30, he walked through his apartment one last time. The photographs of Denise still covered every wall. Her books still lined the shelves. Her presence still filled every corner. "Big day, baby," he said softly. "Wish you were here to see it." He touched her photograph, the one of her in the garage, grease on her face, triumph in her eyes, and felt the familiar ache in his chest. It never went away, that grief. It just became easier to carry. "I love you, Dee. Always will." Then he grabbed his coat and walked out the door. The flight to Washington was surreal. Marcus had never flown first class before. The leather seats, the champagne, the flight attendants who treated him like royalty, it all felt like a dream he might wake up from at any moment. Victoria sat beside him, reviewing her speech on a tablet. She'd insisted on accompanying him, even though the ceremony was supposed to be about Marcus and the Phoenix Corps. "Partners," she'd said. "We started this together. We finish it together." "Nervous?" she asked, glancing up from her notes. "Terrified." "Good. That means you care." Victoria set down her tablet. "Marcus, can I tell you something?" "Sure." "A year ago, I was the most miserable person I knew. Rich, powerful, successful by every metric that's supposed to matter. And absolutely empty inside." She paused. "I used to think my father was a great man, a visionary, someone I should emulate. It took meeting you to realize he was just a bully who happened to be good at making money." "Victoria, let me finish." She turned to face him fully. "You changed my life, Marcus. Not just my company, not just my career. My actual life. The way I see the world. The way I treat people. The person I want to be." Marcus didn't know what to say. For so long, Victoria had been the enemy, the symbol of everything that had been taken from him. And now here she was, sharing her heart on a first-class flight to Washington. "Denise used to say that people are like engines," Marcus finally replied. "Some run clean and efficient right from the start, but others need to be rebuilt, taken apart, examined, put back together with better parts. Which kind am I?" The second kind. But that's okay. Marcus smiled. The rebuilt engines always run stronger in the end. Victoria's eyes glistened. She reached out and squeezed his hand. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. Thank you for giving me a reason to stop hiding. They landed in Washington at noon. A motorcade was waiting to take them to the Smithsonian. Black SUVs with tinted windows, motorcycle escorts, the whole production. Marcus felt like a foreign dignitary visiting from another country. This is ridiculous, he muttered as they climbed into the lead vehicle. This is what happens when you become a national hero, Victoria replied. Get used to it. I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who built an engine. You're a guy who refused to give up for 15 years, who protected his wife's dream when everyone else had forgotten it, who stood up to people more powerful than him and won. Victoria looked at him seriously. That's the definition of a hero, Marcus, whether you like it or not. The motorcade pulled up to the Smithsonian at 1 p.m. The National Mall was crowded with people, tourists, journalists, dignitaries, curious onlookers who had heard about the ceremony. A red carpet stretched from the curb to the museum entrance, lined with photographers and camera crews. Marcus stepped out of the SUV and was immediately blinded by flashbulbs. Mr. Webb, over here. Marcus, how does it feel to be honored by the Smithsonian? Will you comment on the rumors about a Nobel Prize nomination? Victoria appeared beside him, taking his arm, guiding him toward the entrance. Just smile and wave, she whispered. Don't engage. We'll do the formal press conference after the ceremony. Marcus nodded and tried to follow her advice. But the crowd, the cameras, the sheer magnitude of the moment, it was overwhelming. He felt like a fraud, an imposter, a janitor playing dress-up in a borrowed suit. Then he saw something that stopped him cold. A young woman in the crowd holding a sign. The sign showed a photograph of Denise, the same photograph Marcus carried in his wallet, with words printed beneath it, "Thank you for never giving up." Marcus stared at the sign. At Denise's face, reproduced and held aloft by a stranger who had been moved by their story. "Sir." A security guard touched his arm. "We need to keep moving." But Marcus walked toward the woman instead. The crowd parted for him, confused but respectful. "Where did you get that?" he asked, pointing at the sign. The woman, she couldn't have been more than 25, looked startled. "I made it. After I read the article about you and your wife. I'm an engineering student at MIT. Her work inspired me to change my major." Marcus felt something break open in his chest. "What's your name?" "Maya. Maya Johnson." "Maya." Marcus smiled through tears. "That's a beautiful name. My wife would have loved to meet you. I wish I could have met her too." Maya's eyes were wet. "She's the reason I believe I can do something that matters." Marcus reached out and touched the sign, touched Denise's face one more time. "She's still changing the world," he said softly, "even now." Then he turned and walked back to Victoria, who was waiting with tears streaming down her own face. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah." Marcus wiped his eyes. "Yeah, I think I finally am." The ceremony was held in the American Innovation Wing. Hundreds of guests filled the auditorium: politicians, scientists, business leaders, journalists. The Secretary of Energy was there, the head of NASA, representatives from every major automaker in the world. But the centerpiece of the room was the exhibit itself. Marcus's 1972 Ford F-100 sat on a raised platform, carefully restored to its original condition. The rust had been cleaned, the paint touched up, the interior preserved. It looked exactly as it had when he and Denise had finished building it in their garage. And beneath the hood, visible through a specially designed glass panel, was the Phoenix core, the original prototype, the one Denise had helped him build with her own hands. A bronze plaque stood beside the truck. This truck carried a fortune inside, not of money, but of dreams. Built by Marcus and Denise Webb, The Phoenix Corps represents the triumph of perseverance over adversity, of innovation over greed, and of love over loss. May it inspire future generations to never stop reaching for the impossible. Marcus stood before the exhibit, reading those words over and over, trying to absorb their reality. His truck, his engine, his wife's dream. Preserved forever in the Smithsonian alongside the Wright brothers' plane and Thomas Edison's light bulb. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Robert Hayes stepped to the podium, calling the room to attention. Today we honor one of the most remarkable stories in the history of American innovation, a story of genius, tragedy, perseverance, and ultimate triumph. Hayes told the story from the beginning. The NASA years, the Phoenix Corps development, Denise's illness, the stolen patents, the years of hiding, the dramatic confrontation at Kingston Automotive, the partnership with Victoria, the victory over Harold Foster. By the time he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. And now, Hayes concluded, it is my privilege to introduce the man at the center of this extraordinary story. A man who spent 15 years as a janitor protecting a secret worth billions. A man who refused to let his wife's dream die no matter the cost. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Marcus Webb. The applause was thunderous. Marcus walked to the podium on legs that felt like rubber. He looked out at the crowd, all those faces, all those cameras, all those expectations, and felt the familiar terror rising in his chest. Then he looked at the truck, at the Phoenix Corps, at Denise's legacy finally honored after 15 years of injustice. And he began to speak. My wife was the smartest person I ever knew. Smarter than me, smarter than anyone in this room, smarter than most of the professors who taught her at MIT. Marcus's voice was steady now, gaining strength. She could have done anything with her life. Made millions in private industry. Won awards. Built empires. Instead, she chose to work on something that might never succeed. Something everyone told her was impossible. He paused, gathering himself. When she got sick, she didn't complain, didn't feel sorry for herself. She just kept working on the Phoenix Corps, even from her hospital bed. Kept refining the equations, kept solving problems, kept believing that we were close to something revolutionary. Marcus's voice cracked. The last thing she said to me the night before she died was, "Don't let them bury it, Marcus. Promise me." And I promised. I promised I would protect her work no matter what. He wiped his eyes. For 15 years I kept that promise in the only way I knew how. I hid. I stayed invisible. I drove that truck every day, keeping the Phoenix Corps alive, waiting for the moment when I could finally show the world what she had built. Marcus looked at Victoria sitting in the front row. I thought I would do it alone. I thought I would have to fight everyone, trust, no one, carry the weight by myself forever. But I was wrong. Because along the way, I found something I never expected to find. Partners, allies, people who believed in Denise's dream as much as I did. He gestured toward Victoria. Victoria Kingston could have destroyed me. Her father stole everything I had, and she inherited the tools to finish the job. Instead, she chose to make things right. She chose to honor a woman she never met. She chose to be better than the legacy she was given. Victoria was crying openly now. So was half the audience. And because of her choice, we're standing here today. Because of her choice, the Phoenix Corps is going to change the world. Because of her choice, my wife's name will be remembered forever. Marcus turned to face the exhibit. The truck. The engine. The dream. Denise, baby. I know you're watching. I know you're proud. And I want you to know that I kept my promise. I didn't let them bury it. Your work is going to help millions of people. Your name is going to inspire generations of engineers. Your dream is going to outlive us all. He touched the glass panel that protected the Phoenix Corps. I love you. I'll always love you. And this isn't goodbye. This is hello. Hello to the future you believed in. Hello to the world you wanted to build. Marcus turned back to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, the Phoenix Corps was never about money or fame or winning. It was about proving that good ideas survive, that one person can make a difference, that love is stronger than greed and hope is stronger than despair. He took a deep breath. My wife believed that. I believe that. And now, thanks to all of you, the whole world can believe it too. The applause lasted 7 minutes. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Marcus found himself surrounded by people wanting to shake his hand, take photos, share their own stories of struggle and perseverance. It was exhausting, but also strangely wonderful. Halfway through the evening, he slipped away to the exhibit hall for a moment of quiet. He was standing in front of the truck, lost in memory, when he heard footsteps behind him. Mind some company. It was Raymond Chen, the young engineer who had helped him from the beginning, who had risked everything to find the evidence against Foster, who had believed in Marcus when no one else did. Ray. Marcus smiled and embraced him. I didn't know you were coming. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Tesla gave me the week off. Raymond stood beside Marcus looking at the truck. It's really something, isn't it, seeing it here in the Smithsonian? Surreal is the word I'd use. You know, I never told you this, but meeting you changed my life. Raymond turned to face him. Before I knew who you really were, I was just going through the motions. Engineering was a job, not a calling. But watching you, seeing what you went through, what you built, what you protected, it made me realize that our work can actually mean something, can actually change things. Ray. Let me finish. Raymond's voice was thick with emotion. Lily, my daughter, she's 7 now, and every night I tell her stories about you and Denise, about the Phoenix Corps, about never giving up even when the world is against you. She wants to be an engineer when she grows up, because of you. Marcus felt tears welling up again. He'd cried more today than in the past 15 years combined. That's the greatest compliment anyone's ever given me. It's just the truth. Raymond smiled. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. They stood together in silence, 2 men looking at a truck that had changed both their lives. How's the new job? Marcus finally asked. Good. Different. Tesla's doing amazing work, but it's not the same as Kingston. Not the same as being part of the Phoenix Corps project. Any regrets? None. Raymond shook his head. I did what I needed to do. Now it's time to write my own story. That's all any of us can do. Victoria found them an hour later. There you are. The Secretary of Energy wants to meet you. Something about a presidential commendation. Marcus groaned. More ceremonies. Get used to it. Victoria smiled. This is your life now. I liked it better when I was invisible. No, you didn't. Victoria took his arm. You liked feeling safe. But safety isn't the same as happiness. And you, Marcus Webb, deserve to be happy. Marcus looked at her, this woman who had been his enemy, then his ally, now something like family. Thank you, Victoria, for everything. Thank me by living well. That's all Denise would have wanted. She was right. Marcus knew she was right. And for the first time in 15 years, he believed that living well was actually possible. The exhibit opened to the public the next morning. Marcus was there for the opening, standing near the truck, watching as ordinary people filed past the display. Families with children, students on field trips, elderly couples holding hands. They read the plaque. They looked at the engine. They took photos and whispered to each other about the incredible story of Marcus and Denise Webb. One moment stood out above all others. A young boy, maybe 8 years old, stood transfixed in front of the Phoenix Corps. His mother tried to pull him along to the next exhibit, but he wouldn't move. Mom, look, he said, pointing at the engine. That's what I want to build when I grow up. What, sweetie? Something impossible, something that changes everything. Marcus walked over to them. Hey, buddy, you like the engine? The boy's eyes went wide. You're him. You're Marcus Webb. That's me. You built this for real. My wife and I built it together, a long time ago. The boy stared at the Phoenix Corps with renewed wonder. How did you know it would work? Everyone said it was impossible. Marcus knelt down to the boy's eye level. "You know what, kid, I didn't know. Nobody knows if the impossible things will work. But you try anyway. You keep trying, keep failing, keep learning until one day you succeed. But what if you don't succeed? What if it never works?" Marcus thought about this, about all the years of failure, the stolen patents, the dying wife, the loneliness and despair. Then you know you gave it everything you had, and that's worth more than any success. The boy nodded slowly, processing this wisdom. "I'm gonna build something impossible someday," he declared. "Just like you." "I believe you will." Marcus ruffled his hair. "What's your name?" "David." "David, listen to me. Don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. Don't let anyone steal your dreams. And when things get hard, because they will get hard, remember this truck. Remember that someone else faced impossible odds and won." David looked at the truck, then back at Marcus. "I'll remember," he promised. "Forever." His mother pulled him gently away to the next exhibit. But before they disappeared into the crowd, David turned and waved at Marcus, his face shining with determination and hope. Marcus waved back, tears streaming down his face. This was why Denise had built the Phoenix Core, not for money or fame or recognition, for moments like this, for children who would dare to dream because of what she had done. Her legacy wasn't in the patents or the products. It was in the hearts of people who would never give up, and that legacy would live forever. 6 months later, Marcus retired from Kingston Automotive. He didn't need to work anymore. The licensing royalties from the Phoenix Core had made him wealthy beyond anything he had ever imagined. But that wasn't why he left. He left because it was time to start the next chapter of his life. Victoria threw him a farewell party at the company headquarters. Every employee came: engineers, technicians, administrative staff, even the maintenance workers who had once been his colleagues. "Speech," someone shouted as Marcus stood before them. He looked around at all these faces, people he had worked alongside for years, first as a janitor, then as a partner, finally as a friend. "When I started at this company," he began, "I was invisible, a ghost in coveralls mopping floors and emptying trash. Nobody knew my name. Nobody cared about my story, and that was exactly how I wanted it." Laughter from the crowd. But life has a funny way of refusing to leave you alone. It puts people in your path who see through your disguises, who challenge your assumptions, who refuse to let you stay small and hidden. He looked at Victoria. Victoria Kingston saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. She gave me a chance when she had every reason to destroy me. And because of that chance, I got to fulfill a promise I made to my wife 15 years ago. Marcus's voice thickened. Denise never got to see this day. She never got to see the Phoenix Core change the world. But I know with absolute certainty that she's watching. And she's proud. Not just of the technology, but of all of you. Everyone who worked to make her dream a reality. He raised his glass. To Kingston Automotive, to the Phoenix Core, and to the woman who made it all possible. My wife, my partner, my everything, Denise Webb. To Denise? The crowd echoed. They drank, they cheered, they celebrated. And Marcus Webb, the janitor who had hidden a fortune in his truck, walked out of Kingston Automotive, for the last time, finally at peace. 1 year after the Smithsonian ceremony, Marcus returned to Detroit. He had been traveling, something Denise had always wanted them to do. Europe, Asia, South America. Seeing the world, meeting people, discovering that life could still hold surprises for a 59-year-old widower. But Detroit was home. And there was one more thing he needed to do. He drove to Denise's grave on a perfect spring morning. The sun was warm, the grass was green, and birds sang in the trees surrounding the cemetery. Marcus knelt by her headstone, placing a bouquet of yellow roses, her favorite, against the marble. "Hey, baby, it's been a while." He told her everything. The Smithsonian ceremony, the retirement, the travels, the peace he had finally found after so many years of grief. "I met someone," he said carefully. "Her name is Grace. She's a retired teacher from Chicago. We met at a fundraiser for engineering scholarships. He paused, feeling the weight of the words. I don't love her the way I loved you. Nobody could ever replace you, Dee. But she makes me laugh. She makes me feel alive. And I hope you'd want me to be happy. A breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of spring flowers. I'm not asking for permission. I know you'd give it anyway. I just needed to tell you. Needed you to know that I'm finally ready to live again. Marcus touched the headstone, tracing the letters of her name. The Phoenix core is in cars all over the world now. Millions of them. Every time someone starts one of those engines, they're starting your engine. Your dream is alive, baby. Alive and growing and changing everything. He stood up slowly, his knees aching, his heart full. I'll never stop loving you, Denise. Never stop missing you. But I'm not going to stop living either. That's not what you would have wanted. And I'm done dishonoring your memory by hiding from the world. He looked up at the sky, clear blue, endless, full of possibility. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for building the Phoenix core with me. Thank you for teaching me that the impossible is just a word for things that haven't been done yet. Marcus wiped his eyes and smiled through the tears. I'll see you again someday, Dee. But not yet. I've got a lot of living left to do. He walked back to his car, a new Phoenix core sedan, midnight blue, the same color as the first production model. He climbed in, started the engine, and listened to that perfect, impossible sound. Denise's sound. His sound. Their sound. Then Marcus Webb drove away from the cemetery toward the future, toward life, toward everything that was still waiting for him. The sun was rising over Detroit. A new day was beginning. And somewhere in the hearts of every child who had ever been told their dreams were impossible, the phoenix was still rising. Because good ideas survive. Because truth matters. Because love is stronger than loss. And because one man with nothing left to lose had proven that the most valuable things in life aren't always visible. Sometimes they're hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to look past the rust and see the gold underneath. Marcus Webb had kept his promise, and his wife's dream would never die.